I posed as a server at a charity gala to catch my husband cheating, but what I discovered that night went far beyond betrayal. Hello there. If you're watching this story right now, leave me a comment and tell me where you're watching from. New York, California, Texas, or some far corner of the world. And if you believe in quiet karma stories, don't forget to like and subscribe. Now, let me tell you about that night. I stood in front of the mirror in the staff changing room at the luxurious Kalahari Resort, adjusting a black vest over a crisp white shirt. The name tag pinned to my chest read, Emily. Not my real name, a fake one to get me into the party. I had never done anything like this before. I was a marketing director after all, not a waitress, but desperate circumstances call for desperate measures. My husband, Mark, had been acting strange for 3 months, coming home late, whispering phone calls in a closed room. A new perfume scent I had never bought for him. Classic signs, I guessed, but I tried to ignore them. We had been married 6 years. 6 good years, I thought, until 3 weeks ago when I found an invitation stuffed into the pocket of his jacket. Clean Water for Africa Charity Gala, the biggest charity event in the region, bringing together famous CEOs and business leaders from everywhere, by invitation only. When I asked about the party, he told me about the gala, of course. No spouses. Said it was a social obligation, purely charitable. Boring, honestly, just business talk. At first I believed him, but then I noticed he got a fresh haircut at an expensive salon, ordered a bespoke tuxedo, started going to the gym regularly like he was preparing for a magazine shoot. Men don't do that for a boring charity event. My best friend, Rachel, works for a high-end event staffing company. One phone call, and I had a job serving champagne at the very gala my husband insisted it was not appropriate to bring his wife to. I told Mark I was flying to Boston to visit my parents that weekend. He seemed relieved. The manager's voice came over the speaker in the changing room. All servers to your positions. Doors open in 5 minutes. I took a deep breath, picked up my silver tray, and walked into the main hall. The African ballroom was vast and stunning, designed with an authentic African safari theme. Carved wooden statues of lions, elephants, and giraffes mounted along the soaring walls. Chandeliers shaped like ancient baobab trees, casting warm golden light like a desert sunset. Round tables draped in white linen with centerpieces of Zulu-style clay vases and ostrich feathers. A jazz band blended with African djembe drums was setting up in the corner. Everything looked extravagantly elite, exactly the kind of event where I should have been standing on my husband's arm if he had invited me. I chose a spot near the safari-style tent bar with a clear view of the main entrance. Guests began arriving in large groups, polished laughter echoing through the room, greeting each other with warm handshakes and polite embraces. I immediately recognized a few famous faces, CEOs of major regional corporations, a senator, even a few reality TV stars who had appeared on Forbes. A well-known female entrepreneur from a tech conglomerate waved to a group across the room. A billionaire CFO took a drink from my tray without even looking down. That's what it's like serving at events like this. You become completely invisible among the stars. And tonight, that invisibility was exactly what I needed. Mark arrived about 20 minutes after everyone else, and my breath caught in my throat. He looked more handsome than ever. The new tuxedo fit him perfectly, as if it had been made just for this night. He was smiling, that wide, sincere smile I had loved so deeply in our early days. But it wasn't for me. It was for the woman who walked in right behind him, her hand lightly hooked around his arm, as if it were the most natural thing in the world. She appeared a second later, and I felt my stomach flip. She was young, maybe 27 or 28, with long black hair swept up into an elegant updo adorned with delicate feather accessories to match the theme. Her bright red dress hugged her curves, styled like a modern safari goddess. She brushed Mark's arm as they walked in together, giggling at something he whispered. I clenched the champagne tray until my knuckles turned white. I forced my head down as they passed close by me. Mark took a glass without even glancing at me. She shook her head politely, her voice sweet. I'm not drinking tonight, thank you. Her hand instinctively rested on her stomach. A quick, subtle gesture, but I saw it clearly. My heart started racing. Not drinking at a champagne-filled gala, touching her belly. The way Mark looked at her, gentle, protective, proud. I moved closer, pretending to collect empty glasses from the nearby table. I heard Mark introducing her to a well-known CEO. This is Jessica Rivera, our new senior accountant. Jessica smiled brightly, her handshake firm. The knowing looks from the guests around them. They knew. This entire upper crust circle knew. Throughout the evening, I watched them drift through the room like a real couple. No blatant touching amid the powerful crowd, but an intimacy radiated from every small gesture. I stood right next to Mark and Jessica's table, yet my husband didn't recognize his own wife. I served drinks, cleared plates, played my role perfectly while my heart shattered into smaller and smaller pieces. And then, as if to tear away the very last layer of pretense, Tom, Vaughn Enterprises' chief legal officer, already a little drunk on premium champagne, raised his glass louder. And a toast to the happiest couple tonight. Mark, Jessica, when are you making it official? The entire table fell silent for a long beat. Then a few awkward laughs broke out. Some people hurriedly turned to other conversations. But Mark and Jessica looked at each other. A look I knew all too well. A look of understanding, of shared secrets, of what was once called love. I couldn't stay there another second. I set the tray down on the nearest table and hurried toward the staff corridor, ignoring the manager's surprised stare. In the empty hallway, I leaned back against the wall, my chest heaving. A wedding. He was planning to marry her, and that meant he had already planned to leave me. My Mark. My husband of 6 years. The man who once promised he would stay by my side forever. I don't know how long I stood there. Maybe 5 minutes. Maybe 15. But then the shock slowly receded, giving way to something else. Anger. Hot, sharp, and terrifyingly clarifying. I would not fall apart. Not here. Not now. I came to Kalahari for the truth, and I had it. And now I needed to do my job. I sat in a hotel room a few miles from home, my laptop screen open in front of me, the security camera I had paid 5 times the normal installation cost for last night's streaming live. The clock in the corner of the screen flipped to 6:14 a.m. Mark pushed the door open and walked in. He was still wearing the tuxedo from the night before, hair slightly disheveled, dark circles under his eyes from lack of sleep. I could see every detail clearly through the high-resolution camera. He stopped in the doorway, pulled out his phone, and dialed. The phone I had set to silent on the table beside me started to vibrate. It rang once, twice, 3 times. Then my voicemail filled the quiet hotel room. My voice sounded cheerful, warm, just like every day. "Hi, you've reached Emma. I can't take your call right now. Please leave a message." "Hey, love." His voice came through the laptop speakers, trying to sound normal. "I got home late last night. Just woke up. Really craving some coffee. See you soon, okay?" He hung up. I watched him frown, staring at his phone for a long moment. I had never let one of his calls go to voicemail, not once in 6 years. He drove into the driveway. The Porsche came to a stop on the familiar gravel. The driveway was empty. My white Range Rover was no longer there. I had it towed away yesterday. He sat in the car for a moment, staring at the house. He got out. I saw him shiver slightly, then reach into the trunk for a duffel bag. That bag held clothes he had never worn. He walked to the door, inserted the key. The door opened, and I clearly saw the moment the silence hit him in the face. He stepped into the hallway, dropped the bag onto the floor. "Emma?" His voice echoed, bouncing off the high ceiling and hardwood floors. No answer. The house was cold, not from temperature, but from the kind of cold that comes from a place that hasn't been lived in for hours, and empty. His face on the screen changed, from confusion to real panic. He walked into the living room, And that was when he noticed the first thing that was truly wrong: the paintings. Above the fireplace, the original oil painting of the Italian coast I inherited from my grandmother. Gone. Only the faint outline where the frame had been. He spun around. The display cabinet in the corner, where I kept my antique porcelain collection, empty. The glass doors were still closed, but the shelves inside had been cleared. He ran up the stairs, taking 2 steps at a time, his heart pounding so loudly I could hear it through the sensitive microphone. "Emma!" He rushed into the master bedroom. The bed was made neatly, smooth, and flat like a hotel. The closet doors were wide open. He slowed down, stepping toward the closet. His side was untouched: suits, shirts, shoes, everything exactly as it had been. He looked to my side, bare. Empty hangers, no handbags on the shelves, the shoe racks cleared out. Even the velvet hangers I loved were gone. He stood there, breathing short and fast. This wasn't a short trip, not a visit to my parents like I had told him. I smiled coldly at the screen, my hand tightening around a cup of coffee gone cold. He didn't know yet, Mark. He hadn't seen what was waiting for him on the dining table. My wedding ring, a thick envelope from my lawyer, and the photo set from a professional investigator taken last night. Him and Jessica leaving the hotel, hand in hand, lips pressed together under the streetlights. He was about to see it. And then he would understand. I didn't just know. I had started fighting back. The camera in the master bedroom showed everything clearly. Mark slowly walked over to my nightstand. It was almost empty, with only 2 things left. My wedding ring, the 3-carat diamond he bought to make up for forgetting my birthday 3 years ago, lay there coldly, sparkling in the morning light. Beside it was a thick manila envelope. He picked up the ring first. I could clearly see his fingers tremble slightly. He stared at it for a moment, then slipped it into his pocket. Then he reached for the envelope. It was heavy. On the front, my neat handwriting, Mark. He tore it open, pulled out a stack of papers. The first page wasn't a handwritten letter, not tear-soaked accusations or desperate pleas for explanations. It was an official divorce filing. Petitioner, Emma Vanderlyn. Respondent, Mark Henderson. I did not use his last name. I saw him let out a short, dry laugh, disbelief cracking through it. "You're kidding?" He flipped to the next pages. Attached were photographs, high-resolution images, time-stamped, geotagged. Photos of them entering the hotel last night, the same night as the gala. Photos of them kissing under streetlights near the office. The timing precise down to the second. Professionally framed shots. These weren't phone pictures taken by jealous friends. These were taken by a private investigator. The most expensive kind. And I wanted him to understand that immediately. I knew what he would wonder next. How did she have the money? I knew he would search his memory, retrace every expense, every credit card alert. He wouldn't find anything unusual, because I never used our joint money for this. He controlled the finances. He thought he controlled everything, but I never spent his money. He flipped another page, his hands shaking now. This time it was a letter on Vanderlyn and Associates letterhead, the city's top law firm specializing in high-asset divorces. Mark froze. They weren't ordinary lawyers. They were sharks. Their consultation fees alone ran thousands of dollars an hour. He began reading the letter signed by Arthur Vanderlyn himself, my cousin. "Dear Mr. Mark Henderson, we represent Ms. Emma Vanderlyn Henderson in this divorce proceeding. By the time you read this letter, Ms. Henderson has vacated the marital residence at 42 Blackwood Lane. We would like to draw your attention to Clause 14, Section B of the prenuptial agreement you signed 11 years ago." Mark frowned. The prenuptial agreement. He remembered it well. He had insisted I sign it. He was a rising star. I was just the daughter of a quiet, retired man who supposedly knew nothing about law or finance. He wanted to protect his future assets. He handed me the document to sign without reading it carefully. Or at least, that's what he thought. The clause my father had required be added was very clear. If the primary income earner commits proven adultery, all assets acquired during the marriage, including the residence, company shares, and all related financial interests, shall belong to the injured party. Mark stopped reading. I watched his face drain of color. My father, the quiet man who loved history books and smoked a pipe, had passed away 5 years ago. He was not nobody. He owned 51% of Lexington Corp and many other assets. And he had protected his daughter long before I ever met Mark. You never really controlled anything, Mark. You just thought you did. Mark called Nathaniel at that moment. I knew, because Nathaniel's phone vibrated right there on the glass table in front of me. We were sitting in the hotel room, the morning light not yet warm. I knew he would call. When a man who's used to controlling everything starts losing power, that's his first reflex. Nathaniel glanced at me quickly, smiled. I nodded. He put the call on speaker. Mark's voice came through frantic, broken, carrying a kind of panic I had never heard in 6 years of marriage. He rambled about lawyers, about me losing my mind, about the divorce filing, about a board meeting he knew nothing about. Nathaniel didn't answer right away. When he finally spoke, his voice was cold and distant, nothing like an old classmate or longtime business partner. Mark, Nathaniel said slowly, you should check your email. There was a pause on the other end. I pictured Mark standing in the empty house, phone pressed to his ear, trying to piece it together. He asked about the meeting, asked why it was so early, asked why I had anything to do with the board. Nathaniel exhaled softly. She attended, he said. Her lawyers represented her. The meeting started at 5 a.m. I straightened a little, not from tension, but because everything was unfolding exactly as planned. Mark almost shouted. I heard hurried footsteps on his end. He talked about me like I was still the woman who stayed at home, who didn't understand those meetings. Nathaniel was silent for a few seconds, then said one sentence I knew Mark would never forget. You really never bothered to learn about her family, or about her, did you? I looked out the window. The city below kept moving as usual, as if nothing were collapsing. Nathaniel continued, his voice dropping lower. Her father was quiet, yes, but he carried the Vanderlyn name. I heard Mark's breathing break, like he'd been pushed off a height he hadn't prepared for. That name had finally been spoken, not by me, by the man he trusted most. Vanderlyn. Old money, railroad money, the kind that owns entire blocks without needing logos. It's not that I'm not a Vanderlyn. Yes, I didn't carry my father's last name. I carried my mother's, because I didn't want to be loved for money. Nathaniel didn't stop. Do you remember the first angel investment 10 years ago? The money that kept the company alive in its early years? I saw Nathaniel place his hand on the file folder in front of me, as if to make sure everything was there. That anonymous investment, he continued. It was her father's. He invested before you ever met his daughter. There was a long silence. I knew that was the moment Mark was replaying his entire career and realizing the hand that lifted him all those years had never been his own. Nathaniel ended with one clear sentence, leaving no way back. She owns 51% of the voting shares. She's the controlling shareholder. And this morning, Nathaniel said, she stopped being silent. The call ended shortly after. I didn't hear Mark again. I didn't need to. Nathaniel turned to me, not with pity, but with the affection of an older brother who had watched me grow up. Security has been notified, he said. He won't be allowed into the office. I nodded. The decision to remove Mark from his CFO position had been signed before sunrise. I smiled faintly, took a sip of coffee. He cheated on me, deceived me. He thought he was playing a winning hand. He thought I was weak. He thought I was stupid. But I didn't just leave him. I erased him from everything he was ever proud of. Through the camera, I saw him collapse onto the edge of the bed, staring blankly at the empty wall where my favorite painting used to hang. The envelope was still thick. He had only read as far as the termination letter. I knew he was shaking, his hand about to turn the next page. It's not over yet, Mark. The terror is only beginning. I opened the final file. The expense statements were printed out, neatly stacked, line by line. I read slowly, very slowly, not because it was hard to understand, but because I wanted to remember every number. Luxury hotel bills, expensive gifts, private flights, all listed under Ashton Project expenses. Total, $342,000. Not his personal money, not bonuses, company money, used to support Jessica, to build his fantasy life with her. I stopped at the purpose of expense column. The wording was carefully chosen to the point of being absurd. Client entertainment, project costs, off-hours meetings. I closed my eyes for 1 second. Not from pain, but because the entire picture was suddenly clear. Dinners labeled negotiations, hotel nights marked as business trips, luxury gifts called relationship building. I set the pen down. That's enough, I said. My voice echoed through the hotel room, calm, like ending a meeting. My lawyer nodded. This constitutes misappropriation of corporate assets, he said, and there are criminal elements. I didn't ask if he was sure. I asked when. He studied me carefully. As soon as we send the notice. Send it! By 14:36, the chain reaction began. Mark burst out of the bedroom, ran to the kitchen, opened the refrigerator, as if looking for alcohol to steady himself. But there was nothing. I had cleared it out. He rushed to his office, opened his laptop, tried to access his personal bank account. The screen flashed. Account temporarily frozen due to suspected fraud. He slammed the keyboard. Damn it, what is this? His credit cards, all of them, had been frozen by order of my lawyers, based on evidence of embezzlement. He ran to the wall safe in the closet. The door swung open. Empty. Emergency cash, important documents, all gone. Only a small note from me remained. There's nothing left for you. He crumpled the paper and shouted. He stormed into the garage, tried to start the Porsche, his beloved car, his self-reward bought with stolen money. The key turned, but the engine stayed silent. The display read, System disabled remotely. It was the vehicle tracking app I had hacked. Or more precisely, my technician had. He kicked the car door and yelled, Damn it! Why is everything against me? He collapsed onto the cold garage floor, his head dropping onto the steering wheel. Completely isolated. No money, no documents, no car, no job. I saw him cry. The first tears in 6 years. His voice whispered through the hidden microphone. Emma, why are you doing this to me? Because you did it to me first, Mark. Because you thought I was stupid, easy to deceive. Now you know what betrayal feels like. Mark stood up and tried calling Jessica, the final call of a desperate man. But I already knew the outcome. She would refuse, because he no longer had anything of value. He was completely isolated, like an animal trapped in a cage he built himself. And I, from afar, was holding the key. I took a sip of the cold coffee, waiting for this moment. Jessica answered after 4 rings, her voice coming through the speaker. Sweet, but edged with caution. Mark? Why are you calling me at this hour? Are you there? Are you at work? Yeah. Everyone's whispering, and we just received a company-wide notice from HR. What does it say? Mark whispered. Jessica read it out, her voice flat and indifferent, stating that Mark Henderson had been terminated effective immediately for serious misconduct and financial fraud. It said security had his photo at the front desk. Jessica, that's just corporate talk. They're trying to scare me. I built that company. It also says, she continued, ignoring him, that the company is conducting an internal audit of all expenses you approved, Mark. Mark swallowed, his voice hoarse, trying and failing to sound normal. Jessica, baby, I need your help, just temporarily. Can I come stay with you for a few days? Silence stretched for several seconds, and I could clearly hear Jessica breathing on the line. Then she scoffed, her laugh sharp like a blade. Mark, are you joking? You said you were getting divorced. You said you were rich. You promised you'd buy us a house. And now you're broke? Fired? You might be going to prison. I loved that lifestyle, Mark. She snapped. I loved the dinners, the gifts, and the fact that you were going to make me a manager. I didn't sign up to visit you in jail. Mark folded over, his voice breaking like a child's. Jessica, I have you. We love each other. Remember? You said I was the only man who understood you. Jessica, please. I don't have anyone else. I saw him grip the phone until his knuckles turned white, his eyes red and wet. But Jessica didn't soften. Her voice was icy, without hesitation. Don't come here, she said. If you do, I'll call the police. I can't be seen with you. I have my career to think about. I'm deleting your number. Don't call me again. Click. Mark stared at the phone. The screen went black. The battery was dead. Jessica didn't reject him because she was better. She was just as greedy as he was. But that didn't matter. What mattered was that he was now completely alone, with no one left to cling to. No wife, no mistress, no money, no power. He curled up on the filthy garage floor, arms wrapped around his head, muttering over and over, "How did everything fall apart like this? What did I do wrong?" You did everything wrong, Mark, from the moment you chose to betray me. Through the camera, he looked pitiful. The tuxedo from last night's gala now wrinkled and covered in dust, hair wild, face flushed. He tried to stand, staggered back into the house, but his legs gave out, and he collapsed at the doorway. I watched him crawl on hands and knees into the living room, collapse on the floor, panting like a wounded animal. That was the moment he realized. Everything was gone, completely gone. I smiled faintly, not in joy, but in release. He dug his own grave, and now he was lying in it. Nathaniel beside me whispered, "He's broken." I nodded, eyes still on the screen. Good. Now he knows what it feels like to be abandoned. Mark lay there, eyes empty, staring at the ceiling, tears streaming down. No words left, only choked sobs. I turned off the camera and closed the laptop. Enough. The rest of today belonged to him. A long day in a hell of his own making. But I knew he would try to fight. He would call friends, lawyers, someone. But no one would help. Because everyone already knew. Through the board's email, through messages I'd sent to a few key people. Mark Henderson, former CFO, was now a complete failure. I stood up and looked out the hotel window, the feeling of freedom spreading through me. My new life began here, while he sank deeper into the dark. And Jessica? She was just a piece in the game, now shattered. Mark had lost everything: money, power, fake love. All that remained was the gnawing loneliness. I turned off the hotel lights and lay down on the bed. The first good sleep since last night. The next morning, 3 sleek black SUVs stopped in front of the gate. Uniformed police officers stepped out first, followed by Arthur Vanderlyn, my cousin, and also my lawyer, in a sharp gray suit. And I stepped out last. My heels hit the pavement, the sound dry and steady. I saw Mark frozen at the garage door, eyes wide in disbelief. He lunged forward, his duffel bag dropping to the ground with a thud. "Emma!" he shouted, his voice echoing. The police immediately turned, hands moving to their holsters. Arthur merely adjusted his glasses, calm. "Stay where you are!" an officer barked, stepping between us. Mark stopped about 15 meters away, breathing hard, face flushed. "You're a witch!" he screamed. "You planned all of this, didn't you? You ruined me!" I didn't shout back. I didn't cry. I only tilted my head slightly, looking at him the way one studies a strange specimen under a microscope. My voice was calm, clear, carrying without effort. "I didn't ruin you, Mark. I just let you be exactly who you are. Everything else, you did yourself. I built you," he roared, clinging to the last scraps of power. "I handled the money. I took care of you. Before you married me, you were just the daughter of a retired librarian. I laughed, a real laugh, but cold as ice. Mark, I said, with a trace of pity. My family built that library. My family owns the bank you once borrowed from. I didn't need you to take care of me. I needed a husband, but you were too busy being a big man to notice who you married. I nodded to Arthur. He took a small plastic grocery bag from the car and tossed it into the middle of the driveway. It landed with a dull thump a few meters from Mark. What's that? He snarled. The clothes you left at the dry cleaners last week, I replied. And your phone charger. I'm not heartless. I want my house back, Emma. You can't throw me out. Arthur spoke up, his tone smooth but sharp. The transfer deed was electronically recorded at 9 this morning. You are trespassing. The police stepped closer. You need to leave the premises immediately. Mark looked at me, searching for the woman who used to rub his back when he was tired, searching for the one who made soup, searching for anything to hold on to. I wasn't there anymore. Or maybe I never was. Just a mirror reflecting what he wanted to see. Please. He changed his tone. I have nowhere to go. My cards don't work. Jessica kicked me out. I have nothing left. There was a very brief, very fragile pause. Then I said, slowly and softly, You still have your freedom, Mark. That's what you wanted, isn't it? To escape your boring wife. To live the glamorous life. I put my glasses back on. Go live it. I turned my back. Walked into the house. My house. The oak door closed. The bolt slid into place, clean and final. Through the outdoor camera, I saw him standing there, the laundry bag at his feet. Move along, sir, the officer said, hand on his baton. Mark bent down, picked up the plastic bag and his suitcase, and turned onto the gravel path. He passed the hedges we used to trim together on weekends, past the mailbox that still bore his name. Rain began to fall. Cold winter rain. He stepped onto the street, not knowing where to go, only knowing he was leaving behind the life he had destroyed with his own hands. I turned off the outdoor camera and went back to my desk. Arthur asked, Are you okay? I nodded. Better than ever. Outside, the rain grew heavier. I knew he was soaked through in that expensive tuxedo, now wrinkled, dragging a suitcase and a plastic bag down the street. People who once bowed to him at the club now avoided his gaze, looking at him like a drifter. And in the pocket of that dry-cleaned blazer, he would find a prepaid card loaded with $5,000. My final kindness. I had left a handwritten note in the inner pocket. Mark, you never read the prenup carefully, and you never read the company bylaws. If you had, you'd know there's a clause guaranteeing minimum severance regardless of termination reason. Not much, but enough to keep you from sleeping on the street. Use it to hire a lawyer or a therapist. I recommend the latter. $5,000. Yesterday, that amount wouldn't even have covered a bottle of wine for you. Today, it's everything you have. I don't call this revenge. I call it my last act of kindness, enough for you to stand up, and enough for me to never have to see you again. I knew Mark wouldn't stop. People like him, when they lose money and power, the last thing they have left is always hatred. The private investigator I hired, James Harlan, a quiet man with a silver beard and the ability to follow without leaving a trace, texted me at 9 p.m. Target entered the internet cafe across from Chase Bank. Using a public computer. I captured screenshots through the window from a distance. Attached was a photo. Mark hunched over an old computer, face twisted with resentment, fingers pounding the keys. Harlan knew I wanted to track his final moves, not for satisfaction, but to make sure there were no more surprises. Harlan followed up. He's searching for the IRS whistleblower office and the New York Times business desk email. I assume he's planning to report offshore accounts. I smiled faintly and took a sip of tea. Of course, he knew every tax loophole. He designed them. Apex Holdings, Blue Sky Ventures, shell companies in Panama, and the Caymans to optimize. He was going to drag the whole company down with him. Harlan sent another update. He just sent the email. I captured the contents through the telescope. Full details. Company names, routing numbers, everything. I replied to Harlan, "Thank you. Maintain a safe distance." I wasn't worried, because earlier that day, while he was still enjoying himself with his mistress, I had already convened a meeting. Lexington would voluntarily submit to an audit, restructure all offshore entities, and negotiate penalties with the IRS for past errors caused by former senior management. I disclosed first, framed the narrative. The company was clean. There was only one greedy individual, Mark Henderson. My lawyer called the next morning. "He's filed a complaint," he said calmly, "with the IRS and with the press." I wasn't surprised, but what Mark didn't know was that when he sent that email, he wasn't blowing the whistle. He was confirming. He wasn't exposing a new crime. He was submitting additional proof that he understood the fraud system because he was the one running it. My lawyer said only one sentence. He just signed his own indictment. I didn't need to read Mark's email to know how desperate it was. I only needed to see the timestamp. Early morning. Words typed in panic rarely save anyone. By afternoon, it was over. His file was transferred straight to federal authorities. When they knocked on the door of that motel room, I wasn't there. I didn't need to witness it. I only received a short message from my lawyer. Arrest made. Mark was handcuffed for wire fraud, for misappropriation of funds, for conspiracy to defraud the government. He still managed to say one thing. I was told that he was a whistleblower, that he sent the emails, that he helped them. The FBI was very grateful because he had provided a perfect map with his own digital signature. Harlan sent one last photo, Mark in handcuffs being led to the car. And from afar, through the telephoto lens, he also captured Jessica, standing across the street at a cafe, oversized sunglasses, latte in hand, her belly clearly showing. She watched Mark being pushed into the patrol car. No tears, no pity, only cold relief, like someone who just dodged a bullet and watched it strike someone else. Harlan ended his report. "Target is in custody. That's it for today. Do you need further monitoring?" I replied, "No. Thank you. Send the final invoice." I shut off the phone and leaned back in the leather chair of my new office. No more home cameras. No more tracking his every step. It was finished. Mark once thought he controlled everything: money, the company, women, the narrative. But the truth is simple. He was never the player. Some people dig their own grave, then spend the rest of their lives screaming that they were pushed. I didn't push Mark anywhere. I simply stepped aside and let him walk the entire road he chose for himself. 5 years passed faster than I ever expected. I heard about Mark not through the media, but from a short line in a federal record. Sentence served. Mark is old now, hair completely gray, skin lined from stress and lack of sunlight, eyes sunken with permanent dark circles. He works cleaning inside the prison, no longer the arrogant CFO, but an anonymous inmate, visited by no one except his mother, who sends the occasional letter. I ran into Mark's mother once at the grocery store, her voice trembling. "My son! He was wrong. I raised him better than that." I hugged her. "It's not your fault. Mark chose his own path." She cried. "Do you ever visit him?" I shook my head. "No, that chapter's closed." Some names, once they stop being spoken, disappear on their own. And me? I am Emma Vanderlyn now, using my father's surname again. The lineage that built an empire he never knew about. Lexington Corp has tripled in size under my leadership, expanded into Asia, become a symbol of sustainability. I stand on global conference stages in an elegant black dress, hair swept up, accepting the Female Entrepreneur of the Year award. Flashing lights, thunderous applause. Nathaniel, my new husband, once Mark's partner, holds my hand beneath the stage and whispers, "You're incredible." We married 2 years ago, A quiet wedding in a Tuscan vineyard. No spectacle, only real friends. Nathaniel holds me every night. His voice warm. I love you for who you are, not because you're a Vanderlyn. We have a little daughter, Lily, with black hair and a smile like mine. A full life, with no shadow of mark. Occasionally, I receive letters. I don't open them. I don't hate. I'm not curious either. Some stories, once reread, only come back to life. I choose to let them sleep. One afternoon, I stand by the glass wall of my office, watching the city change color at sunset. My phone vibrates. Nathaniel asks if I want an early dinner. I say yes. That's all. No triumph, no gloating. Just an ordinary day, lived the right way. If someone asks me what Mark lost, I won't list things, because what he lost wasn't a house, or money, or a title. He lost the ability to be trusted. Some people destroy everything with their own hands and call it fate, and some walk through the wreckage and quietly rebuild their lives. I chose the second. That night at Kalahari changed everything. A marriage collapsed, a crime exposed, illusions shattered. But it gave me myself back, strong, intolerant of lies. Painful, but worth more than any marriage certificate. Mark lost everything to arrogance and betrayal. I won not by dragging him down, but by rising far beyond what he ever imagined. The best revenge? Living better.